In 1981, the entire developed world had high corporate tax rates, averaging 47%. Then capital became mobile, and rates plummeted to 25%, and they haven't stopped falling. Only the United States remains stuck since 1986 in an out-of-date high corporate tax rate that has sent companies fleeing America for a more competitive tax climate. Look no further than Iowa, where we have seen great companies like Maytag and Electrolux and any number of companies. Ask them why they left states like Iowa. I've been asking all sorts of entrepreneurs across this state, why are you thinking of leaving, or will you consider leaving? And they tell me it's because of high tax rates and high unreasonable regulatory burdens. You see, they will be your future employers. It's important to listen. And other nations are now, unbelievably, a more profitable place to do business. We have to admit that very hard fact. Whereas America was formerly the best place to do business, we can no longer claim that mantle. That's a shame, and that's what I intend to change as President of the United States. I want our nation to once again be the #1 place to do business in the world. And it's for your sake and for your future. America, and Occupy Wall Street in particular, needs to wake up and stop blaming the free market. Stop blaming capitalism. Stop blaming job creators for the failures that have been created by selfish politicians. Because the problem is politicians who wink at their political donors and through the force of law put their competitors out of business. Yes, you heard me right. They use the force of law to put their competition out of business. Because politicians assure their friends that with government's financial backing, their business will never fail. It happens every day, and it has to stop. Because we are not a banana republic. We should stop acting like a banana republic. We're the United States of America, and we need to start acting like that again. We need a system that forces large, well-connected corporations to play by the same rules as small businesses and individual Americans, that protects and provides fair competition in free markets. Because you see, there's a reason that our founding fathers decided to establish our political capital in a different city than our financial capital. Because it's time for us to reaffirm the wisdom of that decision by getting Washington, D.C. out of free markets. And I'm running for President of the United States because I understand the difference between free markets and a Bernie Madoff style of government. We also need a president who understands the Constitution and the limits of the power of the federal government. Because the federal government has continually taken on duties and financial obligations that are not enumerated in the Constitution. This is where we went off course. This is when our nation began to get into financial trouble. Food stamps, the Department of Education, the Automobile Task Force, the government takeover of housing, healthcare, the student loan industry. They're all examples of the federal government taking over and doing what the Constitution did not explicitly enumerate. And you, the college students in this room, are the ones who will pay that impossibly heavy price for politicians acting outside the Constitution. You see, this wasn't monopoly money the politicians were spending. This was real money. And every time they made a decision to choose to spend more money than we took in, well, they chose to spend your future and your life and your choices. That's a very real consequence that you have to pay. So for every dollar that we spend on these programs, realize over 40 cents, 43 cents of every dollar that is spent today by the federal government is money that we borrowed from countries like China. Money that you'll have to work to pay back. Not only you, but your kids and generations beyond you. So here's your bottom line. My opinion is this: 2012 is it. This is the last exit ramp for regaining the American dream. Because unless we significantly reduce the overspending by the federal government and significantly end the tyranny of $1.8 trillion every year in the costs of regulations on job creators, then you are going to face a level of taxation just to pay the interest on the debt to such an extent that it will significantly lower your standard of living, and it will remove your incentive to compete in the global economy. Because after all, will you really want to get up in the morning to go off to work every day knowing that as much as 75% of your paycheck could be leveled or required to pay for taxation at all levels, state, local, and federal? That's a very grim prospect in the future, and one that no other generation has ever had to bear. My goal is to make sure that your generation never bears that burden as well. And it's not just problems here at home that loom on the horizon. While the focus of these comments before you today is on our problems here in the United States, I say to you this week, open your eyes. Pay attention to the events that are unfolding even this week in Europe, because they carry both a warning for you and a risk for everyone in this room. Because events in Greece and Italy show the European-style social democrat model is a game that ends in a thud and ugly crash landing. It's Greek-style government spending on bureaucracies that don't enhance the wealth of a nation, that bankrupt a nation. And your politicians, and President Obama in particular, voted to burden the free markets by carrying a gold-plated, gargantuan government which slowed growth, lowered taxes, and entered the United States into a seemingly irreversible downward spiral. Now, President Obama isn't the only responsible actor. There's a lot of Republicans that have a very large responsibility to bear, including President Bush. He was behind the $700 billion bailout. President Obama, as a candidate for president, also supported that bailout. I opposed that bailout, and I opposed the Bush administration on that bailout, because I knew that ultimately it would create a moral hazard. Because once people are bailed out, they know that they can go back to that same source in the future, and they continue to make the same bad decisions, believing that you will once again carry out and bail them out of their bad decisions. Because you see, the United States is now entering into a seemingly irreversible downward spiral. And our deficit relative to our economy is larger than Italy's. And it's actually not much different from that of Greece. The difference is we're a much larger country. And so when we come to our crash landing, it's a much bigger thud than the one that Germany or that Greece is experiencing today. This is a road, trust me, that we don't want to walk down. And I worry when I hear the president and many in his party call for an even larger government paid for by even larger taxes on those who produce the wealth and the jobs on which our economy depends. This week, there was a $6 billion plus bankruptcy that was filed by MF Global, on Monday as a matter of fact. And as a result of their investments in European bonds, it shows how susceptible the American economy and our financial institutions can be to a failure in Europe. John Corzine is the head of MF Global. He was, after all, the head of Goldman Sachs. And he was the Democrat senator, the Democrat governor of New Jersey. But he also was a true believer that government spending could increase and go on forever. And that is, after all, why he and MF Global made the enormously highly leveraged bets on European bonds. Because you see, what they bet is that bailouts would go on forever, but they don't. But it now appears that Corzine and MF Global went too far, not only losing their money and the money of their equity holders, but that of their customers as well. You see, that's a problem. How many other money managers are there out there with Corzine's beliefs in the omniscience of government who are also overly exposed to Europe? That has profound consequences for you, for me, and for the rest of the nation, and could lead us back into an ugly recession, just at the time when you'll be looking for a job to pay off your student loans.